Megan Carter had barely kicked off her heels when her phone buzzed on the hotel nightstand. She sighed, exhaustion creeping into her bones after a long day of back-to-back panels at the real estate summit in Miami. The room was luxurious, all white marble and gold accents, but she barely noticed. She reached for her phone, expecting a reminder about the cocktail networking event she was supposed to attend in an hour. But the notification flashing on the screen made her pause. Brooke, 16. You need to see this. I'm so sorry. Her stomach tightened as she saw the link attached to the message, a live stream video. Her fingers hesitated above the screen. Brooke was her younger cousin, still a teenager but already trying to make a name for herself as a social media influencer. She was always filming something, makeup tutorials, TikTok dances, vlogs. Megan's heart pounded in her ears. What could she possibly be sorry for? She tapped the link. The video loaded and immediately laughter filled the room. The familiar sight of her mother's dining room came into focus. The long wooden table, the chandelier overhead, the mismatched plates she'd eaten from since childhood, a normal Sunday family dinner. Except this time, she wasn't there. And this time, her mother was on camera, mocking her. Laura Carter, 58 years old, sat at the head of the table, a half-full glass of red wine in her hand, her lips curled into a smirk. She tossed her dark brown curls over her shoulder, looking completely unaware that she was being broadcasted live. Megan thinks selling houses makes her some kind of hotshot? Please, Laura scoffed, rolling her eyes. The camera shook slightly. Brooke must have been filming secretly from her lap. Megan's breath caught in her throat. She's been a disappointment since day one, her mother continued, taking another sip of wine. Remember how she dropped out of law school? Couldn't even hack it. Now she plays dress-up with rich clients and calls it a career. The table burst into laughter. Megan's younger brother, Ryan, 28, shook his head with a smirk. Yeah, she's always acting like she's got it all together, selling houses and thinking she's so important. Meanwhile, the rest of us are out here actually working real jobs. Her Uncle Dennis chuckled, stabbing at his steak. I don't get what's so impressive about real estate anyway. You put up a sign, walk some people through a house, and take a check. Hell, I could do that in my sleep. Aunt Cheryl wiped her mouth with a napkin. She probably only sells houses because she wasn't smart enough to be a lawyer. More laughter. Megan sat frozen in her Miami hotel bed, phone gripped so tightly her knuckles turned white. It was like the air had been sucked from her lungs. She wanted to scream, to reach through the screen and shake her mother, make her realize what she had just done. These were the people she had spent 5 years of her life supporting. The same people who had no idea she had drained her savings account last year to cover their mother's medical bills, rent, insurance, and treatment for her multiple sclerosis. They thought she was just playing dress-up? A cold, sinking feeling settled in her stomach. This wasn't just casual dinner gossip. This wasn't just an offhand comment. This was who they really were. For years, she had justified her mother's sharp words. She's just in pain. She doesn't mean it. She's old school. That's how she shows love. But now she had proof. Her phone buzzed again. Brooke, do you want me to take it down? Megan took a shaky breath. Her entire body felt hot and numb at the same time. She wanted to scream, cry, throw her phone across the room. But instead, she typed back one simple response. Number, leave it up. She had a plan. And this time, she was done playing the fool. The drive from Miami to Austin was a blur of rage and exhaustion. Megan barely remembered checking out of the hotel, barely noticed the airport crowds or the hum of passengers chatting around her on the plane. All she could hear was the echo of her mother's voice from that live stream. She's been a disappointment since day one. She probably only sells houses because she wasn't smart enough to be a lawyer. The words seeped into her skin like poison. The moment her plane landed, she grabbed her luggage and stormed through the terminal, her body buzzing with adrenaline. She wasn't sure what she was going to do first: confront her mother, call out her brother, or burn her entire family to the ground. But when she got into her car, parked in the long-term lot, she didn't drive to her mother's house. Instead, she found herself driving home. Because if she faced her mother right now, she wasn't sure she'd be able to control herself. She pulled into her driveway, turned off the engine, and just sat there, gripping the steering wheel. Scene 1. Flashback to 5 years ago. 5 years ago, Megan had been a different person. She was bright-eyed, ambitious, and unstoppable. A second-year law student at UCLA. She had been preparing for her first summer internship at one of the top corporate law firms in Los Angeles. Everything was going exactly as planned, until she got the phone call that changed everything. "Megan, it's Mom. Something's wrong." Her mother's voice had been weak, trembling. I collapsed at work. The doctors ran tests. They're saying it's multiple sclerosis." Megan froze in her tiny Westwood apartment. "What do you mean, MS? That's serious." Her mother broke down in sobs. "I don't know what to do, honey. I can't afford the treatments. My insurance barely covers anything." Megan didn't even hesitate. "I'll figure it out, Mom. I'll help." And she did. Within weeks, she had dropped out of law school, packed up her life in Los Angeles, and moved back to Austin to take care of her mother full-time. Her mother had cried when she arrived home, hugging her tightly. "I knew I could count on you, sweetheart." Megan had believed those words. She had believed that her sacrifices mattered. Scene 2. The reality of caregiving. What followed was 5 years of exhaustion, debt, and sacrifice. Megan had thrown herself into real estate because it was the only career that offered enough flexibility and financial opportunity to support her mother's medical expenses. She worked 70-hour weeks, juggling clients, closing deals, and still somehow finding time to take her mother to doctor's appointments, physical therapy, and infusion treatments. The expenses piled up fast. Medications, $800 per month. Insurance premiums, $1,200 per month. Specialist visits and treatments, tens of thousands. Her mother's rent, utilities, groceries. And what did Laura do in return? Nothing. She never looked for ways to supplement her income, never tried to cut costs or budget. She just lived comfortably off Megan's back, treating her like a bottomless ATM. Megan had put everything on hold. Her career, her relationships, any chance of going back to law school, and through it all, her mother never once said thank you. Scene 3. The breaking point. Now Megan sat in her car, staring at the folder on the passenger seat. Inside was 5 years' worth of proof. Every bank statement, every insurance receipt, every depleted savings account. And for what? For a mother who called her pathetic the second she was out of the room? For a brother who laughed along, knowing damn well she was the only reason their mother even had a roof over her head. Her hands shook as she gripped the folder. "She has no respect for me. She never did." Something inside Megan snapped. This was it. She was done. She grabbed her phone and pulled up her banking app. For years, she had been putting aside a small amount of money every month, a secret fund she had hoped to use to go back to law school someday. But she had always hesitated, always put her mother's needs first. Not anymore. Her thumb hovered over the transfer button. Then she did it. She moved every last cent from her mom expenses account into her personal savings. It was the smallest action she had taken all day, but it felt monumental, like she had just taken back her entire life in one move. And as she sat there, staring at the confirmation message on her screen, a strange calm settled over her. For the first time in years, she had chosen herself. The next morning, Megan woke up with a clear mind and an unshakable resolve. For the first time in years, there was no hesitation, no guilt, no second-guessing. Her mother had shown her exactly who she was, and Megan had finally believed it. Today, she was cutting Laura off for good. Scene 1. The family confrontation at the cafe Brooke had texted her earlier that morning. "Brooke, hey, can we meet? I feel awful about everything." Megan agreed. She picked a spot downtown, a trendy cafe with overpriced lattes and minimalist decor, the kind of place her mother would mock her for spending money at. She walked in, spotting Brooke immediately. The teenager was sitting at a corner table, her fingers anxiously tapping her iced coffee. When she saw Megan, her face crumpled with guilt. "Meg, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize what Mom was saying until it was too late." Megan cut her off with a wave of her hand. "Don't apologize. You didn't say those things." She set a thick folder on the table. The label on the front read, "Mom, Financial and Medical Records." Brooke's brows furrowed as she flipped it open. Her eyes widened. Inside were detailed bank statements, receipts, and expense reports. Every dollar Megan had spent supporting their mother over the past 5 years. Brooke's hands trembled as she scanned the numbers. "Jesus, Meg, I had no idea you paid for all this." Megan took a slow sip of her coffee, voice calm but sharp as a blade. "Mom's been living off me for 5 years. She has no idea." Brooke flipped through the pages faster, her face growing red. "This is over $180,000. How?" Megan leaned back in her chair, watching her cousin process it all. "She called me pathetic while I was literally paying for the wine in her glass." Brooke slammed the folder shut, her jaw clenched. "This isn't right. She's making you the bad guy when you've been the only one keeping her afloat." Megan smirked. "Not anymore." Scene 2. The plan begins. Megan left the cafe and got to work. Step 1. She removed herself from every financial account linked to her mother. No more paying for insurance. No more covering her rent. No more buying her medications. Step 2. She drafted an email to her entire extended family. Subject: The truth about my financial support for Mom. Dear family. I wanted to take a moment to clarify something before anyone hears a one-sided version of events. For the past 5 years, I have been the sole financial provider for Mom. I have covered her rent, insurance, treatments, and every medical expense, totaling over $180,000. I have done this quietly without asking for help because I believed it was my responsibility. However, recent events have made it clear that my efforts have gone unrecognized and unappreciated. Therefore, as of today, I will no longer be financially supporting Mom. She will need to find new arrangements for her living and medical expenses. If anyone believes that I am selfish or pathetic for stepping back, feel free to take my place. Sincerely, Megan. She attached a full breakdown of every expense she had covered, and then she hit send. Scene 3. The fallout. It took less than an hour for the backlash to start. Her phone exploded with notifications. Uncle Dennis. What the hell, Megan? You can't just abandon your mother like this. Aunt Cheryl. We're family. You don't just walk away from family. Ryan. Wow, so you're just going to let her die? Megan rolled her eyes. Because not a single one of them asked why. Not a single one of them said, I had no idea you were paying for all that. Because they didn't care about her sacrifices. They just cared that she wasn't making them anymore. But there was one text that stood out. Brooke. Grandma saw your email. She's furious. She's coming to your house. Megan felt a chill run down her spine. Her mother was about to explode. Scene 4. The final confrontation. The knock on her front door was loud, urgent. Megan took a deep breath, then opened it. Laura stood there, furious. Her face was flushed red, her eyes blazing. You have no right to do this to me, she spat. Megan crossed her arms, unmoved. You mean I have no right to stop funding your life? Laura stepped forward, eyes wild. You ungrateful little brat. After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me. Megan tilted her head, voice dangerously calm. Everything you've done for me? Let's go ahead and list it. You gave birth to me. And, Laura gaped at her, stunned. I raised you. Megan nodded slowly. And since I turned 27, I've been raising you. Funny how that works. Laura's hands shook as she pointed a finger in Megan's face. You're being dramatic. You're abandoning your own mother. Megan let out a bitter laugh. You abandoned me years ago, Mom. I just finally noticed. Laura's face crumpled, but Megan didn't care. She had spent years being her safety net. Not anymore. She stepped back, gripping the door handle. Figure it out, Mom. And with that, she shut the door in her mother's face. For the first time ever, she didn't feel guilty. She felt free. This chapter was a turning point, showing Megan finally taking action and cutting Laura off for good. Let me know if you want any adjustments before I move forward with Chapter 4, The Mother's Manipulation and the Final Test. Banjanoi, rat tot hai, tiep tuk viet. Theodania so do, vafai jambauju, nung yeu kau toijo tong nat voi ban. Chui destius and kituna. She just didn't expect it to be this bad. Scene 1. Laura plays the victim. It had only been 3 days since Megan cut her mother off financially, but Laura had already spun the situation into a full-blown crisis. Megan woke up to dozens of texts from family members, each more aggressive than the last. Aunt Cheryl, you really need to fix this, Megan. Your mother is in a terrible state. Uncle Dennis, I always knew you were selfish, but this is a whole new level. Hope you can sleep at night. Ryan, Mom says you lost your mind from work stress. Just apologize and help her like you're supposed to. Megan threw her phone on the bed and groaned. It was laughable how fast her mother had flipped the narrative. She wasn't a victim of 5 years of financial abuse. Now, she was the ungrateful daughter who had a mental breakdown and abandoned her poor, helpless mother. Megan leaned back against her headboard, staring at the ceiling. She knew this would happen. Her mother had always been a master manipulator, spinning stories so that she was the one who suffered the most. Megan could already imagine her mother's pitiful voice over the phone with her aunts and uncles. I don't know what I did wrong. I think Megan is having some kind of breakdown. I'm just worried about her. I love her so much and she won't even speak to me. Megan had played this game her entire life, and she had always lost. But this time, she wasn't playing. Scene 2, the hospital call. 2 weeks passed in relative silence. She ignored the family group chats. She focused on work. She went to the gym, booked more real estate deals, and even started revisiting her law school applications. For the first time in years, she felt like her life actually belonged to her. Then came the call. She was in the middle of a showing with a high-profile client when her phone vibrated in her pocket. She pulled it out, barely glancing at the screen, until she saw the message. Brooke, Mom's in the hospital. She's asking for you. Megan felt the blood drain from her face. For a second, her breath caught in her throat. Number. She's lying. This is just another manipulation tactic. But what if it wasn't? What if something really happened? She excused herself from the showing and called Brooke immediately. What happened? She asked, voice tight. Brooke sounded nervous. She collapsed at the house. They think it might be a reaction to her new medication, but she's stable now. Megan exhaled slowly, gripping the edge of her car door. Stable. So, in other words, not an emergency. Did she ask for me? Megan asked. There was a long pause before Brooke sighed. Yeah, but I don't think it's what you're hoping for. Megan closed her eyes. She already knew exactly what her mother wanted. She wanted her caregiver back. She wanted to guilt Megan into fixing everything. And if Megan went running to her bedside now, she would be undoing everything she had fought for. So instead, she took a deep breath and asked the only question that mattered. Is she stable? Brooke hesitated. Yeah, but then she'll be fine. Scene 3. Megan stands her ground. Megan expected immediate backlash for not rushing to the hospital. She expected another onslaught of texts, another round of guilt trips. Instead, silence. No calls, no texts, not even from her brother, which meant only one thing. Laura was planning something bigger, and Megan would be ready. Megan didn't think about her mother for the rest of the week. She refused to. Every time her mind drifted toward guilt, she shut it down. Every time she felt that old urge to fix things, she reminded herself, Mom is stable. Mom is fine. Mom is no longer my responsibility. She had spent 5 years sacrificing for someone who never appreciated it. Now, it was time to focus on herself. And just like that, her life started falling into place. Scene 1. The Resilience Award. The event was held in the grand ballroom of the Four Seasons, with chandeliers hanging from the ceiling and glasses of champagne being passed around. Megan had been invited last minute, nominated for an award she never expected to win, the Resilience in Real Estate Award. She sat at a round table near the front, barely listening as the announcer called out different winners. It felt surreal, being here, celebrated for her success, when just weeks ago, her own mother had been calling her a failure behind her back. Then, and the winner for the Resilience in Real Estate Award goes to Megan Carter. Applause erupted around her. Megan froze. For a second, she thought she had misheard. But then her colleagues were nudging her, grinning, whispering, "Go up there!" So she did. She stepped onto the stage, her heels clicking against the polished floor. The presenter, an older man in a sleek suit, handed her the glass trophy with a smile. "Congratulations, Megan. Your story is inspiring." Megan took the microphone, heart pounding. She hadn't prepared a speech. But as she looked out at the crowd, colleagues, clients, mentors, she knew exactly what she wanted to say. "This means more to me than I can express." She took a breath. "For a long time, I let other people define my success. I let their opinions shape the way I saw myself, and for years, I believed them when they told me I wasn't enough." The room was silent, listening. But success isn't about proving people wrong. It's about proving yourself right. And for the first time in my life, I know I am exactly where I'm supposed to be. Applause. Loud. Real. Megan smiled as she stepped off the stage, and in that moment she realized she didn't need her mother's validation. She never had. Scene 2. The final confrontation. Megan had planned to celebrate after the ceremony, maybe grab a drink, toast to her new chapter, but instead, her phone buzzed. She pulled it out, still riding the high of the night, until she saw the message. "Brooke, Mom's at your house." Megan's stomach dropped. Of course she was. She should have known Laura wouldn't give up. Megan took a deep breath, then hailed a cab home. She wasn't afraid. She was just tired. When she pulled up to her house, Laura was already waiting on the porch. She looked frazzled, her makeup smudged, her hair messy. But Megan didn't feel pity. Not anymore. She walked up the steps, calm and collected. "You shouldn't be here," Laura's eyes snapped to her. "So that's it? You're just going to ignore your own mother?" Megan folded her arms. "I'm not ignoring you. I'm setting boundaries. Big difference." Laura let out a bitter laugh. "Oh, so this is what your fancy real estate career has turned you into? A cold-hearted bitch?" Megan didn't flinch. "No, Mom. You turned me into this. 5 years of treating me like a bank account instead of a daughter did that." Laura's face twisted with anger. "I gave you life." Megan smiled. "And I just took mine back." For the first time, Laura had nothing to say. And for the first time, Megan didn't need her to. She turned, opened her front door, and shut it in her mother's face. Scene 3. The Walk Away. 3 months later, Megan sat in her new office reviewing contracts for a high-end property sale. Her phone buzzed. A text from Brooke. "Brooke. Mom finally moved in with Aunt Cheryl. I think she's trying to guilt trip her now." Megan smirked. Not her problem. She had spent too many years carrying burdens that weren't hers. Now, she had her career, her peace, and her freedom, and she would never give them up again. She chose herself. And it was the best decision she had ever made.